NDP ਲੀਡਰ ਜਗਮੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਲਿਬਰਲ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਜ਼ੋਰ ਪਾਵੇਗੀ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਕਲਾਈਮੇਟ ਚੇਂਜ ਨਾਲ ਲੜਨ, ਪਬਲਿਕ ਟ੍ਰਾਂਸਪੋਰਟ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਿਕਾਸ ਅਤੇ ਕਿਫਾਇਤੀ ਘਰ ਮੁਹੱਈਆ ਕਰਾਉਣ ਵਿੱਚ ਮਿਊਨਿਸਪੈਲਿਟੀਜ਼ ਦੀ ਹੋਰ ਸਹਾਇਤਾ ਕਰਨ। ਬੀਤੇ ਦਿਨੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਓਟਾਵਾ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੋਏ ਫੈਡਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਆਫ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨ ਮਿਊਨਿਸਪੈਲਿਟੀਜ਼ ਦੇ 100 ਤੋਂ ਵੱਧ ਮਿਊਨਿਸਪਲ ਆਗੂਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਵਾਅਦਾ ਕੀਤਾ।
Mais c'est tellement important aussi qu'on connaît le terrain. And good afternoon, friends. Just spoke with FCM and outlined some of our priorities, the fact that we are ready and excited to work in this minority government, to work to deliver for people. We want to be an ally with municipalities to deliver on the things they need. And we've identified a number of things where we can work together: public transit, fighting the climate crisis, making sure communities are equipped to deal with climate impacts, and that means mitigation funding, and making sure we build a future that is more sustainable with investments in housing. I think that carbon pricing is absolutely a part of the path forward, but it's not the only thing. And there's a host of measures that I've outlined that I think need to be taken. That's investing in public transit, retrofitting homes, building more sustainable homes. That's providing supports to actually allow us to reduce emissions. So there's lots that can be done. When it comes to carbon pricing though, the problem that I see with the way this is being rolled out is that without giving people an alternative, without giving people a real alternative to use public transit, without giving people a way to reduce the cost of energy for their homes, without giving people an alternative, the increase in the tax is just going to mean a higher burden for working class families. And that to me is not the right thing to do. What we need to do is provide a real alternative. So that means investing in public transit so people have a choice, where they can actually get to work, they can get their kids to school in a way that's affordable, that's convenient, that there's an alternative, so that we're encouraging people to do something that's going to be good for the planet, but where there's a real choice. If there's not a better way to heat someone's home, then people are going to be left with just paying more to keep their homes warm. And that to me is wrong. We've got to give people real alternatives. And that's why the fight for defending the environment has to include a host of measures. It can't just be one approach. It's just going to mean increasing the cost for families, and that's wrong. Well, the rebate program, as it stands, that might be the case. As the tax increases, if that's a proposal, we know the burden is going to be felt by middle-class families, by working-class families. And if there isn't an alternative, if there's not a different way to heat someone's home, for example, and there's a massive cost to that, and there isn't an alternative to make retrofits available to reduce the cost of energy for a home, it's going to create a burden. Even if there's a rebate, there's going to be a burden on families. And I think that the idea of putting a price of pollution is important, and I support it. But that's why I'm really highlighting that we've got to do more than that. We've got to also invest in public transit. We've got to invest in retrofits. We've got to find ways to make it easier to make the more environmental choice. And that's going to actually help families out. We actually led the charge as New Democrats. Put out a letter over a year ago asking the Prime Minister at that time to give the power to municipalities that choose to do so to ban handguns. That's something that I supported. We led the call for that. And then the Liberal government or the Liberal Party put that out during the campaign. So it's something that we've led the charge on. It's something that I support. And in terms of assault weapons, it's also something that there's a lot of support for. We want to see some actions right away. We want to see gun control measures in place right away. But we also put out a very clear indication that that's not sufficient. That just putting in place limitations on the type of weapons is not enough. If we want to tackle violence, there is a host of evidence that the root causes are more complex, involve a lot of steps. But some of those steps involve investing in communities, giving them the tools to support young people and give them a bright future, investing in things like affordable housing and tackling inequality and poverty are some of the things that we can do at the ground level to solve the root causes that lead to violence, some of the inequality that leads to violence. So that's what we've called for as well, that any gun control initiative can't just be about the restriction of weapons alone. It has to be about the investment in communities to prevent long-term problems.